didn't think there were any questions left, but clearly there are. I'd want to address my first questions to Geraldine O'Leary. I just picked up on what you said yesterday in relation to the invoice. I'm not someone who normally raises invoice. That is not part of what I do. This was an unusual situation where I was asked by the director. That's directly what you said. You knew obviously there was this was, if this was something that was unusual, or if it was routine, I wouldn't expect you to remember it, but this was unusual. This was really unusual. You don't normally do this. And you're being asked to make an invoice out for consultancy services. Did you know there was a problem with this last year, not this year, but last year, when people internally started raising concerns with you? And did you believe that there was a need to keep this under wraps at that stage?
No, I didn't deliberately keep anything under wraps. As I've said from the beginning, this was unusual because I'd never been involved in any element of a contract with the presenter. And we've gone through year one already. In year two, in 2021, the Director General asked me, was there any commercial partnership possibilities? And I said no. I didn't go back to Renault because we already owed them.
No, I don't want a big, long response.
Yeah. So I think the question you're asking me was, did anything happen in 2021? Is that what you're asking me?
I'm asking you last year, did you know there was a problem when people internally raised this with you about this invoice?
When I was asked to go to Grant Thornton? Yes.
Last year? Before, was this raised with you last year?
No, the issue came up in March of this year.
So you're saying categorically nothing was raised with you last year in relation to this invoice? You're absolutely categoric about that?
Yes.
What did you tell your staff to do when they asked you about what the consultancy services were for?
I didn't have that discussion with my staff. As I've said before, while it's unsatisfactory, the question is who came up with the term consultancy fees? Was it Director General? Was it Noel Kelly? But I didn't just. Do you mean my?
See,
do you mean the person who was raising the invoice?
I've worked in offices over the years, and when you're asked to raise an invoice, you will put on the invoice what it's for, so as the person on the other side will know what they're paying for. So you're raising an invoice for consultancy fees, and this goes to the heart of the act designed to deceive that we talked about earlier. So you've got an invoice that you're raising. You've been instructed to raise it. You don't normally do this. You can't recall some aspects of it, but it doesn't name Ryan Tubridy. It doesn't name his company, but that in this whole arrangement, he would have been a beneficial interest in this. And the person who raised this in your office then, on your behalf, what did they say to you when they asked you what will we put on this?
I asked my assistant to raise the invoice. She looks after the administration of the barter account with our finance manager. I asked her to raise the invoice, and I asked her to talk to Noel Kelly as to the details around the invoice.
So Noel Kelly was saying what should go on the invoice?
Well, I've repeatedly said, Deputy, that I don't remember whether that was the Director General or Noel Kelly. My PA and I have discussed it at length, and neither of us are certain. But my assistant was asked to raise the invoice, and to do that, she had to talk to Noel Kelly, give him the billing details, etc.
Okay,
So
I want to stay with yourself on another point before I move to someone else. You would have led the week-long trip to Japan in relation to the Rugby World Cup. That's correct.
Yes.
Have you had? So you would have benefited from that in relation to the trip. Have you been? Have you had an involvement? Anything else that involves a barter account?
Yes, I have. I mean, I think it's important to say that barter accounts exist in most media companies and are used frequently for client entertainment. So yes, we will provide the list.
What kind of things would you have been
But in certain
personally
cases,
involved with?
we may have taken a table at a sponsorship awards event. We may have taken a table at a marketing event, always with clients.
Is there
and
anything,
agencies.
you know, like the Rugby World Cups?
If you're asking if there was anything that I personally benefited from on my own without clients or agencies, absolutely not.
Can I move on to ask about the remuneration and development subcommittee, which Ms. Doherty, you had. Now that would have met, according to the records, that would have met 16 times between 2012 and 2016. It would have met 6 times between 2017 and 2021. But it didn't meet at all. It didn't meet at all in 2020. Now, other permanent committees, and this will be in the records, other permanent subcommittees met regularly in 2020 and 2021. Now, there would be significant issues here that we're talking about today that would have been under the purview of this particular committee, including, for example, that as has been described, the balloon payment at the end of a contract. Why was it, and who causes this committee to meet?
Well, the committee meetings are normally set by the system within RTE, and I would accept responsibility. There was a meeting scheduled for March 2020 of the Remuneration Committee. That was the cataclysmic end of the world, and
I have very little time, so...
Yeah. So yes, then I had a personal illness, and betwixt and between, these fell through the gaps. However, I, in my role as chair of the board, together with chair of the Auditing Committee, kept regular communication with the Director General on the issues under the Remuneration Committee, which were essentially consulting on top 10 talent and also consulting on executive pay.
Ryan Tubridy, and I'm glad to hear the top 10 talent thing has been consigned. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, top 10 talent, top of the top 10 is Ryan Tubridy.
Yes, and
we're going around in a circle here. So would you say that Ms. Forbes encouraged you not to have a meeting?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And all my dealings with Ms. Forbes, I find her to be a woman of integrity. And I think that what has happened here is there's been a major disastrous slip.
Had there been a meeting of this committee, would these issues have been discussed?
I did discuss with Dee regularly the negotiation with Ryan Tubridy. That was
It just seems that all these silos, and like if everybody did their job and it interacted, yes. you know, these things would not be, people would have asked questions. I want to move on because I want to ask Mr. Collins, do you believe, the response you gave us earlier in relation to when Deloitte asked you the question and then you asked Ms. Forbes, you know, and she gave you this very convoluted thing that you gave us earlier. Do you feel that you were that she was not being truthful with you in the response that she gave to you at that point?
No, I couldn't say that she wasn't being truthful. She gave me an answer. Well, it's not for me to second guess her. She gave me an answer. The answer.
So what you know now?
Well, obviously now, yes, she wasn't truthful.
Okay, right. Okay. Can I ask also if, you know, barter accounts have and maybe for legal, if barter accounts have the potential of breaching, for example, state aid rules?
I have to say I was aware of anything about a barter account or of any knowledge of what a barter account.
But could it happen if you were, for example, paying salaries by putting out invoices that are describing, you know, they're describing a consultancy that didn't happen, but it in fact was paying the remuneration of somebody that otherwise would be directly paid by RTE.
I think it is absolutely wrong. Whether it's a breach of competition or state aid is something I would have to investigate.
Well,
I don't know.
If you would come back to us with that. And
I will.
Mr. Collins, could you give us that list of barter accounts? Do you have that list in front of you?
Of the transactions that went through the barter?
Or is there a list of barter accounts?
No, there is only one barter account.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And then what are the transactions? Are they, that was the extent of the transactions?
No, there's
you read?
hundreds of transactions.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is that
You
it?
okay?
Can I come back in?
One very brief one.
Yeah, I'll come back in. Come back in
You're
the
okay.
next.